Hi, everybody. You are in the right place. If you're looking for the Kramer and NETGEAR webinar, it's about right up on the hour. I'm going to wait another minute or two to get some more attendees here. But I want to make sure you get the audio straight away, and we're coming to you loud and clear. And you have the screen, of course, with the slides. Make sure we're all ready to go. This is going to be a jam-packed webinar, I know, with lots of great information. So hang on for another minute or so. Let's see if we can get this number of attendees up, and then we'll get it on the road. Get going. I saw even a few of you, there was, I think, 3 or 4 people that were on a half an hour ahead. Now that's what I call people who are early birds, chomping at the bit. And I'll say too that my apologies for not having my camera on. My camera's usually on, but I'm in the middle of some winter storm with an internet outage, but my trusty Netgear mobile hotspot 5G is getting me through, at least with the audio. I had to get a plug in there somewhere. So that's, I'm the third person not talking. Alrighty. Well, a couple minutes after 11, let's get the show going. Thank you all for being here, morning, day, night, wherever you are. This is truly a worldwide webinar coming to you with folks from Kramer and NETGEAR AV. You'll see on the screen Theo van Niekerk coming to you from Auckland, New Zealand with Kramer, and Laurent Massia from Paris, France for NETGEAR. I'm stuck in Northern California, as I mentioned, in the foothills with some snow. My name's John Hinkle, and today these two guys are going to really take you through exactly what it takes to transition your organization to doing some AV over IP with Kramer and NETGEAR. We are strong partners, and we have been for several years. We're going to talk about the NETGEAR AV line of switches that you see there, and that creates the fabric for AV over IP. And then Theo will run us through all the goodness of the Kramer KDS7, their AV over IP streaming solutions, and show you this stuff. And the great thing is we'll have a live demo. So you can see from the NETGEAR Engage software controlling the switches and setting those things up to the KDS software as well, and see how that network's actually working. And Theo will run us through that, and Laurent will do that as well. We have some folks hanging out for the chat and questions. If you want to just chat, feel free to use the chat, but for actual questions, it'd be a little helpful if you could use the question, the Q&A panel, and they can get them answered there for you. So really, that's about my involvement here. I'll pop in with some questions in chat that come up throughout the way, but I want to turn things over now to my good friend and colleague, Laurent Massia.
All right, thank you so much, John, and good job despite the winter conditions in your region. Welcome, everyone. This is a great honor for the entire NETGEAR organization to welcome our preferred partner, Kramer, today, and Theo. So I'm going to start real quick. I'm going to probably spend 8 minutes with you to set the stage, because after all, what is AV over IP? Well, this is like before, remember, analog, digital, switcher, HDBaseT, but now the fabric is not this big, expensive switcher anymore. It's the network. So of course, the network is at the center, and it needs to be reliable enough, right? It got to work, because even if you have the best Kramer KDS7 technology on the left, all the encoders capturing the video, the audio from the sources and sending them to the Kramer KDS7 decoders, where you have your displays and all your equipment. In between, you got to have a very good, reliable networking fabric. So let me take you through the NETGEAR AV line, because after many, many years, we now have a big community of AV partners that we, run certification, multiple certification with. And of course, Kramer is one early partner of us. Not only we went through mutual certification, but I also know for a fact that the Kramer KDS7 latest solution has been designed primarily at first using NETGEAR switches. Of course, the KDS7 can work with any Ethernet switch, right? It is respecting the Ethernet standards, but it's going to work much better on the NETGEARs. Why? Because the AV configuration for video, but also for video with audio, Dante, QSys, AVB, is scanned, pre-configured for you in really easy to use AV profiles. So I'm not going to spend time today on the switchers themselves, but for your reference, especially because we are recording this session today, we do have a whole lot of switchers, and I'm going to try to guide you through the selection. All these switches come with an AV user interface. That's what makes the big difference, because you don't have to know all the protocols and all the techniques, for configuring multicast anymore. The Kramer KDS7, for instance, configuration is all packed up, ready to go in these AV profiles. So now time to mention for me that, hardware, you've seen the switches, the software, we are going to demo it to you with Theo. But additionally, right, hardware, software, the service and support are extremely important. And the reason why Netgear today clearly is the most preferred switch platform for AV over IP application is because we do have a worldwide team of proud, very technical AV/IT SEs helping you night and day. So this is just one email away, okay? proavdesign@netgear.com. proavdesign@netgear.com. You will always find someone in your time zone, less than 2 hours, much less than 2 hours most of the time, to answer your questions before a project, during a staging or configuration, and of course, after the installation, should you have any issue. All right. So we do have at Netgear 3 main lines of switchers for your AV over IP. And of course, we have hundreds of other switches in our portfolio, but please understand that only those series were designed from the ground up to sustain AV over IP in a good way. Okay, so that's the product offering that the ProAV design team will always advise you to use. 4250 for 1G applications, 4300s for 1G/10G with a little bit more enterprise class form factors. You can see that the 4250s are actually looking better, much better in the AV rack. And the 4500 should you have a big, huge install requiring 100 gig at the core. So the 4250 series is at the center of our AV line. That's what Theo in the next minutes is going to use for demoing the KDS7. The first news I have for you today is that after 2 years with big rack mount units that are good for AV racks, at last we packed all the power of the 4250 line into new desktop switches, and they are available. So one for audio with 1G uplinks, another one with 10G uplinks for video. The two 4250 switches are rigorously the same. This is exactly the same hardware and the software for the first rack mount versions, but packed into very quiet desktop switchers. So the GSM 4210PD and GSM 4210PX should be now your switch of choice when you don't have an AV rack, but you have a conference room, a boardroom, or mobile studio, then this little form factor, especially with the flanges on the side, can be stitched on the table, against the wall, behind the screen. Very, very good, and they work flawlessly with the rest of the product line. So this is the first big news. Now the desktop 4250 switches from Netgear for the AV line are available for your installations outside of the rack. Second big news is the Netgear Engage controller. We took all your feedback for these past 2-3 years. We know that the AV user interface is great when you have one switch to deploy, but as soon as you have more than one, it's like fastidious to configure them one by one. So now this Engage controller software is available for you so that you can just, discover all your switches and centrally configure them. So the big thing, right? The big problem is how to make sure that the switches together, they do a good job. Well, the answer is a central configuration so that once for all, you can define your profiles and VLANs across the entire network. As a conclusion, I want now to tell you our secret. Why, at the end, why Netgear is far better than pretty much every other switch platform for AV over IP. Well, let me tell you, it all started at Infocom in 2019 in Florida with something new that took us a couple years to do, called IGMP Plus. The big problem with AV over IP is that it's all multicast, and if you don't do those crazy layer 3 multicast PIM routing techniques that nobody really wants to do, right, for AV over IP, you are flooding the multicast to the center of the network all the time. You are flooding the IGMP multicast to the IGMP carrier. Netgear fixed it. It's a IGMP Plus function that is backward compatible with IGMP, of course, but that will always consider that nobody is interested in any multicast until you have one receiver somewhere else on the network that will subscribe. And then, only then, your multicast will traverse the network to get there. So IGMP Plus was not deemed enough by our John Hankel, our marketing manager, because coming from the AV, he found out that other things were complex, right? Difficult to do, deploying networks. So the first thing we did after IGMP Plus is the trunking, how to make sure that dynamically the VLANs can go from one switch to the other without any configuration. We call that trunking, so that you don't have to worry anymore for your interconnect. And last but not the least, the automatic link aggregation, the lag also is now fully automatic across 4250, 4300s, everything, so that you just don't worry anymore if you need more than one link in between switches, because you have plenty of KDS7 Kramer encoders. You have 20 of them, you have 40 of them, you need 4 10G links, just connect the switches together. The lag is formed for you, the trunking is formed for you, and you're good to go knowing that your multicast will not flood. So that's the secret behind the hardware, the software, and of course, the Pro AV design team. I hope I gave you a quick clear information on the Netgear platform. Now, time for me to set the stage for Theo. Theo, you're up.
Thanks, Laurent. I'll just share my screen.
By the way, Laurent, thank you for making it easier for me, the AV guy, one of the crowd. It is easier.
Absolutely. I mean, the AV profile and the 4250s certainly take a lot of the guesswork and the initial headaches just for setting up AV over IP out of the equation. So, quick introduction. Who is Kramer? We ultimately, with various products, we power the engagement with the most intuitive end-to-end audio-visual experiences. We have representation with 19 offices in countries. Where we don't have offices, we do have local representation, and then we are further supported by 14 local distributors globally. Obviously, the topic of the day is AV over IP, but I thought I'll just throw in the hero slide. We certainly don't only do AV over IP. There's thousands of other products that we can put together in multiple different ways to get a great outcome for the end user. But as I mentioned, the topic of the day is our KDS7 product family, and within the family, we really strive to have outstanding experiences. We've got a rich set of inputs and interfaces, HDMI, USB-C, USB, easy to use KVM and KVM roaming, which is, we'll go into a bit more detail with the demo. Large scale video wall, we can do up to a 16 by 16 video wall, processing the images with the decoders directly, which obviously allows you to go from a video wall to, you can break up a 16 by 16 into multiple smaller video walls. And the switching, I did a quick demo earlier in the week with Laurent, just to show how quickly the switching is. And I must be honest, the first time I saw the switching specifically on the 4250s, I was pretty blown away. Obviously, large-scale deployments, as we know, AV over IP is great from a deployment perspective because it just scales so easily. The KDS7 supports up to 1,000 endpoints from an encoder perspective. Obviously, using multicast, the decoder side is I would imagine pretty much unlimited. We have a centralized management device that allows us to do firmware upgrades and configuration changes across groups of encoders or decoders, and that is just further reinforced with some additional management functionalities within the KDS7 manager. From a security perspective, we have the usual 802.1x. We've got the SSL encryption on the web pages. Our devices have been tested to meet the OWASP top 10 certification, and we also allow logical as well as physical separation on the different traffics required on the encoders and decoders. Simple planning and rollout. It's cost effective from day one because you really only need to add and define the system for what you need today, and you can expand as you require. And it really just depends on the application that you need. So without further ado, what is the KDS7 family? We have 6 products in there today. We've got a basic encoder, basic decoder that will allow you to encode HDMI and then decode that again. On all of the box-based encoders, we have a loop output. So in a control room environment where you may have an operator's desktop, where that will be local as well as on the main control wall, you can do that without adding additional boxes. And on all the decoders, we have a local input, so you can switch between the stream and a local media player or a different source if need be. Got the auto switching encoder, which gives us a USB-C input that carries both 60 watts of power delivery, HDMI, and the USB signaling, and it'll auto switch between an HDMI/USB input and a USB-C input. As I mentioned, we've got the KDS7 manager that makes it so easy to manage large deployments. It's not even funny. And then the wall plates. Again, on the encoder side, we've got the auto switching wall plate that gives you USB-C and HDMI. And on the decoder side, we have a decoder wall plate. In December, we will add another member to the family, a 3-input auto switching encoder, and in this case that will also support the Dante audio standard, so we'd be able to extract the audio and send it to the network natively. Within the ecosystem, we've got full flexibility to route encoders, different audio and video from different encoders to different decoders, and with the addition of the SW3, we'll also have the ability to send the audio to the network for further processing. Under the surface, a couple of things that really sets these devices apart from our previous generation is the fact that they are VLAN aware, and that'll become clearer as we go into the demo. But essentially, we could separate the multicast traffic from the control traffic, which just makes the deployment so much easier. KVM switching, as I mentioned, we can very easily, as we switch between encoders on the decoder, the USB functionality follows. So for those large KVM deployments, it's really easy to bring that functionality into it as well. Then the KVM roaming really is quite amazing if you delve into it, because what it allows us to do is create a relationship between multiple decoders. And regardless of what source you're switching to that particular decoder, the relationship is maintained between the decoders. So and again, you'll see that in the demo. And then most importantly in the AV space is the IP first gateways. So traditionally we would need RS-232 or infrared gateways to convert and maybe control legacy equipment, or just to expand the control capabilities. What we've done in the decoders and the encoders is we've moved that conversion to the legacy control interface right to the edge. So we're taking that IP first approach, IP right to where you need it, and right at the end we'll convert to either RS-232 or infrared or CEC. So it really does give us the ability to really rely on the network as much as possible. And with that, I believe it's demo time. Laurent, I believe that you have something to say about that slide.
Oh, you want to show my screen again?
No, we can show mine. I've got the slide that we moved over to mine, so let me reshare that, and
All right.
I'll
Yeah,
give
that's me.
you.
That's me.
That's all good, John. I'll just give Laurent control for if he does need it.
I was anxious.
Then
Yeah.
you can carry on seamlessly. It's all good.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Theo, this is my modest contribution because I have witnessed your great setup preparing today's presentation, and I thought it was going to be useful to explain how this setup is before we can see it, right? So this switch, the 4250 24 port PoE 2 port, additional for 1 gig and 4 fiber ports. This switch has been configured with blue and red colors, right? So the default blue VLAN 1 is the actual video VLAN. So the video template has been applied to it so that this ports, the blue ports, they can do a great job with KDS7 encoders and decoders for the streaming, for the video. When the rest of the switch is red, this is another VLAN. We call it the control VLAN, VLAN 20. And primarily, we have all the control equipment, all your control equipment on that VLAN. And of course, if we were into a, for instance, headquarters for an enterprise deployment, all the customer network would tap into that VLAN for control, right? So the red would be the common denominator. The VLAN 20 would be the IT corporate network control VLAN as well. But the magic here is that Kramer did something that I previously never saw ever. Instead of asking the switch to inter-VLAN, if you wish, the unicast between the blue and the red so that we can offer control from the red part to the blue part, directly the KDS encoders and decoders can separate the control traffic from the streaming traffic. So the traffic comes directly untagged for the video and tagged with the VLAN 20 for the control, so that the switch stays at the layer 2, minimum complexity. Really, you're going to see it. There's no complexity at all on the switch configuration because all the job has been done. And Theo, maybe you can comment on that screenshot. This is the actual decoder configuration, but this is absolutely great.
Correct, yeah. So all the video traffic, the multicast is running natively on the switch, and it really is plug and play from a very basic perspective, where your switches, the 4250s with the pre-configured AV over IP capabilities, just makes it so easy. But what we've done, and I'll just flip over to a live switch over there. As Laurent mentioned, what we can do, and I might actually just show our decoder screen for that. So in the network configuration of both the encoders and the decoders, you'll notice that there is this 802.1q switch. And what that allows us to do is we basically move all the control as well as the control gateways away from the multicast and put it on a completely different VLAN, which is then tagged for that control. So essentially, the way that this switch is configured, port 25 goes to the rest of my network, and that is how I'm accessing and controlling the devices. And as Laurent said, it really just takes that inter VLAN routing requirements out of it. So in order to integrate a KDS 7 and a Netgear 4250 installation with a customer network, you literally need a single untagged uplink to the corporate or the control network, and the multicast traffic never hits the customer's network. That's the beauty of it. So also from a security perspective, if anybody's using any sensitive videos that won't, sorry, I was looking for the word there. Any sensitive videos that you won't be able to sniff those packets and capture it and try and decode it at a later stage. Again, it really just makes the deployment so easy. And Laurent, I know we spoke briefly about getting a dedicated profile for Kramer, which will make that deployment even easier. So
this is correct, Theo. And well, John Hankel knows the trick. I have to say first that Netgear, being a public company, we will not comment on any future product productions, no product enhancements, but we all agree today officially that it would be a great idea, because I'm going to probably show it currently, because those Kramer devices are so intelligent. We need to do two things. We need to first welcome those devices into the blue VLAN for video, and then we need to go to the control red VLAN and tell the switch that the control is coming tagged. That's why we see the little T on every blue port. And yes, in the future, that would be a great idea. We should have a dedicated Kramer profile so that this profile would be multi-VLAN, so that it would be plug and play. And why not? Let's be crazy, maybe doing some automatic recognition, detection of how the KDS is configured, so that the profile becomes really plug and play. So I'm with you, Theo.
Great. And so yeah, look forward to that announcement when we can announce it. So over to the live demo. What we have is we have 4 different PCs going into 4 decoders. In this instance, for the demo, I don't have 4 screens. I've actually got it going into one of our multi-viewers, the MV4X, which gives me 4 virtual screens, which is amazing. And then I have set up the KVM roaming. So let me get that mouse out the way. So as you'll see, my mouse moving seamlessly between the 4 different PCs as I just go through the edges, and that gives me full control of any of the PCs as I move across. I can easily launch any app on any of the PCs seamlessly. And I only have the 4 PCs, so if you bear with me, I will quickly just change the order of them to show that the relationship of the KVM roaming remains with the decoders regardless of which encoders are switched to them.
So you are changing, yeah, you are changing the actually the 2x2 is now different, right? Yeah.
Correct. So it's just the order. It was previously encoder 5 top left and encoder 1 bottom right, just to give an indication. And as you'll see, I can carry on using that relationship regardless of the order and the layout. And then what's
so
more
just
is
to double check.
Yep.
Sorry, Theo. So you just changed the assignment of the encoder to that decoder feeding the upper left, right? It isn't like you changed
Correct.
decoder positions. You
No,
changed
not
a
at
whole
all.
different PC.
Correct.
That
So
yep.
No, John. So I actually just, because I've only got the 4 PCs connected currently, I just changed the order in which they decode. If I had a fifth, I'd be able to actually switch to a different PC. But in this instance,
Sure,
it was just the change of order. So I mean, I can run it back, and that is live switching speed of the decoders on the network. So that is actually changing the encoder that the decoder is subscribed to.
Yep.
And this I can comment, because what we've just seen is that in far less than 1 second, right? Far less than 1 second, you asked the devices to first send a leave message to the switch saying, I'm leaving that source. And then a join message, right? An IGMP report saying, I want that new source. And usually, the common knowledge in this industry is that with the 10G devices that Kramer have, of course, the 10G uncompressed devices, switching is really fast. And usually with 1 gig that is compressing a little bit more, switching is slower. But here, what we can see is that with KDS7 on a 4250 switch, this is what I would call instant. And this is absolutely unbelievably fast.
Oh yeah. And the rumor has it that we're working in the background to speed that up even more. So I look forward to seeing that when it comes out of the oven, so to speak. And then very quickly, late last night, I thought let me add the ability to switch my virtual 2x2 workstation into a video wall, because why not, right? So we can quite easily do that and route one of the displays to that. And now I can switch to any of the different PCs that is on the network, and even Mac is not a problem. Now the beauty of that is your relationship remains, so I could seamlessly use my mouse anywhere on this particular PC, and regardless of what PC I switch to it, I maintain my ability to control it.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is awesome. So Theo, for our understanding, this is what you are calling the KVM roaming.
Correct.
Yeah, this is great.
So it's seamlessly switching the USB control as we hit the edge of the screen.
Okay. All right. So what you told me earlier is that all that control for the USB, for the KVM part, is a dedicated multicast group. So this is a very, very new because this is a unique implementation that really allows the roaming, the KVM, and the control of the keyboard and the mouse to follow the exact same rules and benefit from all the power of AV over IP per se, right? Because the network is any to any, but now this is also any to any for controlling KVM and the mouse. So congrats. So maybe Theo, we could get back to the switch real quick to try to find which multicast we are talking about. So maybe let me see, do I have control?
You do.
I do. All right. So how does it work? Well, we do have 2 profiles that are created, right? And so the control, if I select it, and I am in Paris right now, and Theo is in Auckland. So this is amazing because I can control his screen. There's not even a second of latency. So we can see that all the red ports are accessed, as he said, because all those devices are controlling the system, they are not VLAN aware, nor is the rest of the network, because Theo's network is on port 25, and this is how it can tap into that VLAN 20 without even knowing it is in a dedicated VLAN 20. But see, the blue ports that are a member of the first VLAN 1, blue video VLAN, here we configured those ports clicking twice, so that instead of a chat box, we have this little T telling the switch, you know, these ports, they belong here as well, but the control traffic is going to be tagged directly. So this is how the setup is. And yes, this is what we absolutely should simplify in the future, so that we have a little bit more automation. Yes, I can close that window. So the question, Theo, is can we look at which multicast we see on that switch? So going to the multicast menu on the left, we do see on every port a whole lot different IGMP snooping groups. So I'm not going to explain what an IGMP group is, but you know, Theo. So can you give us some color on, how does it work? How the KDS system works here?
Sure. So what the fact that we use different multicast groups for different traffic allows us to do, before I delve into which group does what, is it allows us to do within the ecosystem. We can do what we would traditionally call in Pro AV breakaway switching. So we could take video from encoder 1 and audio from encoder 7 and display it on a single decoder. So maybe some content like you have behind you with some background music. But in addition to that, we can also switch the IR from a different encoder to that particular decoder, or the RS-232 from a different encoder again to that particular decoder. So if, for argument's sake, we've got an encoder in the rack that is close to the control processor, we can add RS-232 to that and create a dedicated relationship between the encoder in the rack and the decoder, and independently switch the audio and the video, so that we've always got control of the panel over RS-232, for argument's sake. We could do the same thing with USB, even though the application for that would be less relevant, because if you don't see the screen, you're not really going to use the USB, right? So you'll notice that if I just highlight from there, so that is encoder channel 1 multicast, and you can identify that by the last octet in the multicast address. So that is all relating to encoder 1. The second octet in the multicast address tells us what traffic is carried on that network, and that'll be, so on 2251 it'll be the management traffic. On 2252 it's the actual video traffic. 2253 is the audio, and 2254 is the USB. 2257, I believe from memory, is the CEC communications, which we're not currently using, but because it's a bidirectional, it's always there. And then you'll see further down, we've got additional traffic on channel 2, which will be those over there. We've got channel 3 and channel 5, and no doubt if we carry on through the pages, there'll be more to be seen. But that's essentially how we break up the traffic, that we can do free routing within the ecosystem.
Yeah, congratulations, because I think John Hankel can confirm that to us, but I believe this is the first time ever we go and see really what is behind the scene with an AV manufacturer, and I'm very honored to have you, Theo. We at Netgear are very enthusiastic, because at least you just explained to us what we see on the switches. So that IGMP group table is showing who is subscribing to what, right? So the port 1 is subscribing to and we see the members. And now we may understand, Theo, why it's actually a good thing that if we have a multi-switch setup, you don't want to see all that multicast activity, all those groups flooded to the center to the carrier if you have 2, 5, 10, 20 switches, right? Because at least you know they are well here, well
Correct.
taken care of on that switch, if you only have, subscribers on that switch. But thank you for the explanation.
Correct. Yeah, and I mean that the RGMP Plus really makes it so easy, especially if you've got that multi-switch deployment. I can recall, I don't know, probably 3 years ago when we redid our office in Auckland with another switch vendor, which we will speak not of. The requirement to get the central PIM location and getting all that PIM set up for the RGMP, it was reasonably complex. And having done a fair amount, I say a couple, it's more than 2, I can assure you, of deployments with the M4250s, it's just so easy. It literally feels like plug and play. And understanding what goes into making that work without your AV UI and the automated algorithms in the background, it's pretty trick.
That's a really good point, Theo. If I can jump in there too. These are not dumbed down switches with that interface, right? It isn't like we just made them, play school switches. These are full up IT switches. Laurent would never have that happen. That have all the behind the scenes stuff. You can do layer 3 PIM routing if you want to, but
Yep.
you don't have to, and that's pretty cool. And in concert with companies like Kramer who think about this the right way, they prevent it. You don't ever have to worry about that, even if you didn't have a Netgear switch, I guess. But the good thing is, of course, developing your products on Netgear switches makes this just the perfect combination for sure. I've got a couple of questions that have popped in, if I may, since we're kind of stopped down for a second here. I'm sure we'll have more. Question from John: can the KVMs stack for arbitration on screen that retains control of up to 12 PCs?
I don't know if I fully understand the question. So maybe if John can elaborate, I can certainly respond.
Yeah, we can see if he has some more clarification on it. He's still around.
Sure.
That's John. And then second question, will the KDS7 line support 4K at 60 with 444 sometime in the future?
No, that'll be a limitation on the chipset. So the 4K is 420 at this stage. No doubt in future. And again, even though we're not a public company, I will not comment. I'll take the Netgear stance, and I will not comment on future developments at this stage. But I would guess, and that it'll be a pretty authoritative guess, that there is something in the works.
Yeah,
that would support 444.
There's constant R&D going on at everybody's company, so who knows what's going to appear. And I'd say look for the next trade show, likely, when that stuff comes to fruition. One more question here from Mujib. How can this be used in conjunction with NDI cameras?
It's the KDS7 line is really more aimed at if I may, an HD-based T alternative on the network. So it is based on low latency, high bandwidth, and it doesn't interoperate with NDI. It is an ecosystem within itself. So I guess the short answer is it doesn't, unless, of course, you are needing to bridge the gap. You would have to decode the NDI and have an HDMI signal going into the KDS7 encoder, and that way you could bring that camera into the KDS7 ecosystem. But there's no direct interop at this stage, and I don't believe there will be.
Yeah, good point, Theo. And I can actually attest, because we at Netgear are involved in many NDI and hybrid deployments, and we see that more and more. You have a lot of new types of NDI products that can either encode or decode It's actually a very small box, you know, with RG45 NDI in or out and HDMI in and out. So this is how, if effectively, a NDI installation with some content or some cameras or some sources too, like a production server, like my OBS right now, would actually then inject HDMI into a KDS7 encoder. Yeah.
Correct.
And we got some more follow-up from John. Thank you on his KVM question. Really, it's how many PCs can be controlled via the system, and do we have a larger KVM input capability?
Again, with the KVM being over IP, we support 1,000 encoders, so 1,000 PCs if you want, John.
That's
Obviously,
easy.
you'd have to switch them to the screens. So certainly, I'd pair that up with Kramer Control to make your life easier. But no, it's as long as you've got the endpoints connected to USB and HDMI, and you've got decoders and the ability to switch them, you can control them.
Of course,
Maximum, sorry, John, the maximum number of decoders that can be put in a KVM roaming relationship is 16. So, and that we've got control over that. I think I might show that to you on the KVM configuration. As you can see, we've only got 4 decoders in that relationship. The one would be the master, that's what the keyboard and mouse is connected to. And then the others are the slave devices that we switch the USB to. And in this instance, we got a 2x2, but we could grow that into a 2x8 or into a 4x4. Now, keeping in mind, if you're going to be doing automatic KVM switching on a 2x8 relationship, I certainly hope you can have a big mouse pad or very long arms, and certainly an external mouse would be recommended as opposed to a trackpad because it'll go on for days, right?
See a standing desk, yeah, a long table.
Yeah, and a treadmill.
Good question from Sean that Derek actually answered, but everybody should know publicly, and Iran should hear this too. Sean was asking about a router. What router do we recommend? Does Netgear have an AV quality router that would work well with Netgear Engage?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this is a very good question. Of course, Netgear has a lot of good routers. Currently, we very often go with the OB Pro router. As you know, Netgear is doing great Wi-Fi with access points and inside cloud. And one device is called OB Pro. That's a mesh system, but the main master unit is a router, and this router can be used. And same as Theo, I would say that I cannot comment on future product introductions, but we know that with Engage and the AV line switchers, when you guys need to do NAT or get just static routes back in order to allow inter-VLAN routing, a professional AV capable router is due. And this is something we can acknowledge.
If this webinar wasn't being recorded, we could say something. No, we're not going to. So yeah, we're aware of that. That's a really good question. Really good question. So far, that's all the other questions I have at the moment. So we're about 10 minutes till the top of the hour again. If you guys have anything else to kind of wrap up here, please feel free.
I think I've covered everything I needed to, so ultra efficient as we should be.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes, Theo, congratulations, because demoing a Navy line user interface with 2 profiles, VLAN 1 and VLAN 20, blue and red, you know, that's always easy on our part. The reason why we have so much attention and we work so hard to simplify over IP, it's because we know that the hard part, really the hard part of AV is the AV endpoints, and demoing all this in a seamlessly fashion this way, it's really amazing. So congrats, Theo. It's
Thanks,
amazing.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah, it's been a great experience with all the whole Kramer team, from marketing and engineering all the way down. I feel some really good synergy, and we'll certainly follow up with everybody after the webinar if you have any other questions or want to find out more. I think, I don't know if Yuri has this, Theo has a slide, or Laurent has
I
that.
do.
Yeah, there we go. Look at that. So a couple ways to get some more information. Email addresses, of course. There's also the our portal, the Pro AV portal. You can find lots of information there. There's a resources section there with all kinds of information and links to videos and things like that. And if you're looking for more general AV over IP training, we've got a really good academy at netgear.academy, www.netgear.academy. That is the kind of odd but URL, and it's free, and you can sign up for courses there. We have a lot of stuff coming next year for the academy as well. Some general business classes and a lot of AV over IP stuff. Some of the SDVOE kind of general networking basics are appropriate. You can find those in our academy as well. And then Laurent had mentioned the Pro AV design team, of which Derek on the chat is, the questions is one of, and that team's expanding. Laurent, tell us about the Pro AV design team real quick, would you?
Oh, yes, thank you, John. As you know, we are in the US, in Europe, many countries, in Asia Pacific, many countries. We are not in New Zealand, but we are in Australia, and not too far away, I would say. So this team is actually going to double because we receive more and more requests. And yes, 8 new members are actually training themselves with us this quarter, so that January 1st, we have an even bigger worldwide team. So it doesn't matter for you guys. Pro AV Design, netgear.com, you will always have someone that you can trust that will take you through your projects from a switching platform standpoint.
And we also have, Laura mentioned some, wireless stuff as well. So we have an attention on the AV industry, from switches, from wireless products that you won't find on our website or at Amazon, things like that. So we just want everybody to make sure you understand that this isn't just your Netgear in the home. This is the Netgear AV focus of the company, and we are here to help in any way we can. Certainly, Kramer is an awesome partner. We want to thank you for showing up. Theo, great job as well. And I know we're all excited about seeing how all this stuff comes together. You will all be sent a link for this webinar, and you can use that to then view it offline. It'll be there probably tomorrow or so. And if you have any questions, there's where to find us. Appreciate you coming out, and thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Thanks, John. Thanks, Laurent.
Thank you.